Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
If everybody's ready now, let's give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Chris C.
Thank you, sir.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Chris Campbell. Hi, everybody. I want to thank Donna for inviting me to be here. It is an honor and a privilege to participate in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank my wife, Alex, for coming up with me tonight, and Emily for riding up with us, and Todd for speaking. You gave a great talk, and it was good to hear you. I'm glad to be here. I hate coffee breaks when I'm the speaker. When I'm not the speaker, I love a good long coffee break. But when I'm the speaker, I think we should forego the coffee break, really. It's the way I feel. And, you know, I'm glad to be here. I really am. I've been sober since the 14th of February, 1980. That's 16 years, and I figured it out finally today because I'm coming up upon a day. On November 27th, the 27th of this month, well, Thanksgiving Day, I'm really bad at math, so I'm not sure if it's the 27th or 28th. I was 16 years, 287 days old when I got sober. And on November 28th, I will be 16 years, 288 days sober. I will be sober longer than half my life. Now, it's one of those AA things, like, what does that mean? And where do I collect the prize? You know? Will I receive extra credit at some point for being sober longer than half my life? But it strikes me because I truly am consider it to be the greatest blessing of my life to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I believe that everything good in my life comes from my membership here. You know, I have a rich and a full life, and it's not all tied into AA, but AA is the foundation of my life. It is the seed of my life. It is that from whence the blessings come. It truly is. It's my saving grace. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and it was exactly that. It was the suburbs. It was a tiny little street. Tiny little house on a tiny little street with a tiny little yard, 2 tiny little cars, 2 tiny little parents, a tiny little sister, and a cat. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. All I ever wanted to be was from the Bronx or Brooklyn or Harlem or Compton. I just wanted to be from somewhere, you know? Somewhere. I had the experience a couple years ago. I went up to Santa Barbara to speak, and I was walking down State Street, beautiful State Street in Santa Barbara, refurbished Sunday afternoon. Bunch of teenagers are sitting out on the sidewalk, you know, I don't know, with their skateboards and stuff. And I looked at them, and my mind said to me, what a horrible place to raise children. That's just what goes on here. I wanted to be from a burned out building with no parents and no family. I just wanted to be the guy up in the window, the burned out frame of the window with smudge on my face, and people would say, there he is. That's him. We don't know, but there he is. And that would be me. And I would be happy. You know, before I ever drank, I read books. I read The Outsiders, and that was Then, This Is Now, and Go Ask Alice. I loved Go Ask Alice. For anyone that doesn't know, Go Ask Alice is the anonymous diary of a teenage drug addict. I wanted to be Alice. I used Alice as a textbook. Alice got stressed out, she would pop Reds, Secanols, barbiturates. I didn't have access to barbiturates, so I would pop those little red hot candies under my tongue. And I swear to you, they would relax me. I had my first drink when I was 9 years old. It was a Carling Black Label. I was bartending for my cousin. Him and his friends, they didn't rob houses. They robbed people that robbed houses. That's what they said to me. They said these other guys robbed houses and they didn't want to let the thieves benefit from their crimes, so they stole the stolen stuff. No wonder he's today chief financial officer of one of those biotech labs up in San Francisco, you know? Some things you just can't learn in school. One night they stole a case of whiskey and a couple cases of Carling Black Label. They told me I could open each can and I could take the first sip. I realized if you're only allowed one sip, take a big sip, right? And that's simple. That night I threw up in my sleeping bag. So as to not have his mother catch us, I was forced to sleep in my puke for a week. It's not that bad. Really, I mean, the first night it's bad, but you're drunk. The second night it's drying up. The third night it's flaking off. By the end of the week, you really don't even remember you vomited there, you know? I certainly didn't. If you'd asked me what did alcohol do for me, I wouldn't have mentioned the puking in my sleeping bag. I would have said alcohol allows me to walk up to a grown man, put my arm around his shoulder, look him dead in the eye, and say, "Get bent." I don't even know what that means. It was the ability to say, "Get bent." I mean, I'm 5'7" now. When I was 9, I was a lot shorter. This is as tall as I've ever been. Alcohol did that for me. Second time I drank, we drank Monkey Brew. Monkey Brew is everybody steals something with alcohol in it, you mix it together in a jar, and you drink it. That night we were drinking vodka, gin, bourbon, beer, wine, and champagne. I can tell you a few things about this mixture. It was purple. It had foam. The foam was purple. And it swirled in the glass when it sat on the table. We drank that. My best friend, Matt Smith, and I went into the 8th grade dance, and he threw up on a nun. Wasn't a spiritual experience for her, but it was for us. There was a great liberating sense in throwing up on a nun. No, I jest. Anyway, the next time I drank 16 Genesee cream ales. I drank 16 because that's as many as I could drink. Someone came up to me halfway through the night and said, "You know what, you're physically as drunk as you're going to get. Your body can't process alcohol any faster. If you continue to drink, all you're going to do is ruin tomorrow." Okay. I have always, drunk or sober, been willing to ruin tomorrow in the hopes of making tonight just a little bit better. Right? Even sober. I don't drink, but I'll ruin tomorrow anyway. Just because maybe it will get a little better in 13 seconds. And that's the way I live my life, you know, and that's the way I drank. And that's the way I did drugs. I'm a drug addict. I don't mention that at the top. I identify as an alcoholic because this is Alcoholics Anonymous. But I want to make it clear that I'm addicted to any chemical that affects me from the neck up. I wait really out of a sense, as my sponsor, Howard Peace, says, I wait really out of a sense for Bill's sake, Bill Wilson, who waited until page 7 before he mentioned drugs. And then didn't mention them again until page 21. So, you know, I just want to give it a little thing there. The reason I loved alcohol is because it affected me as I used it. The thing I hated about drugs is I would take 2 pills and nothing would happen, so I'd take 2 more, and nothing would happen. So I'd take 2 more, and nothing would happen, and I'd take 2 more, and the first 2 would kick in, and I think, oh my God, I'm going to die. Spend the whole rest of my life just repeating my name and my phone number, you know? A lot of fun. I used for 7 years, start to finish, that's as long as I used. I wish I had done more, especially speaking here tonight. I wish I could say, and I robbed a bank, and I stole a tugboat, and I went to Paris, I believe. I didn't. I was a teenager. I was drunk. If I drank here, I woke up here. It's pretty much the way it worked. Trace back to my feet, stand me up, and that's where I'd been drinking. Last night I ever drank, I had a hit-and-run accident with a Catholic priest. Made a brave and daring getaway, and he found me. And I mentioned that he was a Catholic priest because I was raised Catholic. I was raised vaguely Catholic, but vaguely Catholic is Catholic enough. My parents went to Catholic school all the way through college, and then my mother went to the convent. She left, thank God, otherwise only half of me would be standing here tonight. In the boring half, I might add. And if my father ever hears that tape, I'm kidding, you know. But my aunt's a nun, so that covers me, really. Jesus is my uncle. She's a bride of Christ. She's my aunt. He's my uncle. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm bragging, but I'm not making it up. The priest asked me for my license. He asked me if I'd been drinking. I said, no, Father, I wasn't thinking. He said, no, I said drinking. I said, oh, no, I'm just upset about the accident. He asked for the registration. I handed him the entire contents of the glove compartment. It's my mom's car, so I handed him maps to places we'd never been, games to play on trips we never took, a book of sonnets, I don't know why, pencils with no points, lots of mom tissue. You know that balled up tissue? You don't know if it's been used or if it's just been in her purse forever. He asked me to walk home. I said, no problem. He left. I got back in the car, and as I went straight, I kept driving, going where I was going, and the road turned to the left, and I went straight, and as the sign in front of me went down, it said, no parking anytime. And I thought, it's a good damn thing they don't let people park here. It could be dangerous. And I got where I was going, and my friends didn't laugh, and that's really all I can say is they did not laugh. And I hate when people with long-term sobriety say, I'll tell you something, kid. Back in the old days when I got sober, yeah, I didn't have all these hospitals. No, sir. Threw a guy in a closet, took him out in a week, took him to a meeting. That's how we did it. Yeah, they always seem to talk like that when they tell you about what it was like back then. But this was back then. This was back in the days before friends don't let friends drive drunk. This was back in the days of friends go out driving drunk with friends. Remember those days? I mean, sometimes we'd walk to the party and then go get the car later. When you're driving a 71 orange Plymouth Duster without power steering, it helps to be drunk. That car is my family. I'll just tell you this car. They bought the 71 orange Duster in 72 because it wasn't the model year anymore, and they got a break. They didn't pay for power steering because that would have been $200. And they only kept the car for 16 years. No need to pay for that power steering. Radio, another $200. Didn't get a radio. Why? We're only going to have the car for 16 years. It's like a built-in stress test every time you park. Came to Alcoholics Anonymous the next morning. I went to school. I threw up in the hallway, which is not allowed in a Catholic boys' school, and I went home and I called AA. I called AA because my friend Lizanne had been in AA. Lizanne was the kind of drunk that I wanted to be. We drank in a park mainly, and Lizanne would wake up in New York City or Atlantic City or on a bus bound for Ohio. I love that. She came to Alcoholics Anonymous in November of 1979, and in 3 months I noticed a change in her eyes. Her life stayed the same, but I noticed a change. That's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, as I understand it, because that was what I saw. And so in early February of 1980, I went home from school. On a Tuesday morning, I was a junior in high school. I opened the yellow pages and I called Alcoholics Anonymous. What I got was a little thing called the 319 Club. And a woman answered the phone. She said, AA, may we help you? And I said, yeah, how do you get into AA? She said, the door. And I thought, you know what? We don't need that. Well, that's it. Today's her last day on the phones. She said, if you get here by 12:30, I'll take you to a board meeting. I said to myself, a board meeting? I'm not even a member yet.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
What kind of shoddy organization are these people running? I got there around 2:30, and when I got there, I have to describe this club. It was no wider than this section of chairs, and it was about the length of this room. It was the second floor. It's above a tap room. And it was decorated in kind of, I've never found the AA pamphlet for how to decorate an AA club, but there must be one, because they're all relatively the same. There's the sick guy in bed with two healthy guys talking to him, Norman Rockwell-esque painting. There's the rocky coast at sunset scene with Serenity Prayer. There's the steps and the traditions with their own spotlights. There's the slogans at artful angles down the wall. Easy does it, first things first, live and let live. Think, think, think. Everything is covered with 45 years of tar and nicotine, so the place appears to be melting. There's three guys in AA when I get here. They're the 150-year-old Russian guys from those Dannon yogurt commercials. Remember those guys? They could barely move, then they'd eat the yogurt, and they could do backflips and cartwheels. Those three guys are in AA. They're the only three guys in AA. I look at them, I think, if I don't drink for as long as they've been alive, I can have a drink for 134 years. And in green Gothic backlit lettering in the back of the room, it says, "But for the grace of God." And I think to myself, but for the grace of God, what? I would have gotten hit by a bus on my way in here? It looked grim. Very grim. I stayed. And I think that's the important thing. That day I got a ton of phone numbers. Everyone would shove their phone number in my face, and they'd say, and I do it too. I have cards. I see a new guy. I walk up to him. I take my card out. I approach him. I hand him the card with this hand. I shake his hand with this hand. I look him dead in the eye, and I say, "You feel free to call me anytime." And I do that because that's what was done for me. I want to give back what was so freely given to me. The second reason I do it is I know he's never going to call. He's not going to call at any time. That's why I drank, so I wouldn't have to call you. And tell you what, I'm the biggest piece of shit that ever lived. I'm a scourge on Western civilization. I am the crack. I am the descent. We were arcing until I was born, and now we're descending. I am what the Republicans warned you about. What am I going to say? One guy called me the next day, scared me to death. He said, "Chris?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "This is Paul. We met in AA yesterday." I said, "Hey, Paul, how are you?" He said, "I'm good. I'm going to a meeting tonight. Would you like to go?" I said, "Yeah." I didn't want to go. I want to say, "Paul, I went to AA yesterday." "You mean I got to go 2 days in a row?" But I said yes, because that's what I say. And he took me to a meeting, and that was the beginning of this journey. And now it's 16 years and some odd months later. And what do you say? I mean, I have 12 minutes to discuss 16 of the most remarkable years of my life. Do I give you my little step review? Do I take you through one by one because I work them so differently than you that you'll receive sparkling new information about the steps? I think what's most important is that I'm here, that I'm still here. For me. Maybe not what most important for you is that I'm still here, but for me. Because it's remarkable. I spoke here in December, it will be 3 years. It was 3 years ago. And I thought my life was amazing then. And my life is almost completely different. I'm married. I hadn't met my wife yet. You know? I came here. I used to speak to meet my wife. I mean, if I go to Glendale, I speak because I have to. If I go to Malibu or Laguna, I'm trying to meet my wife. Because I heard Bob Earl tell that story all those years ago. He showed up to speak 2 years late, and She shook his hand, and he shook his hand. They introduced each other, and bang, they were together, and boom, ba-ba-ding, you know? He had another tape. So I would look carefully as the line proceeded. And it didn't happen, not here, you know? What happened here is I met one more person that didn't like me, but damn it, I can convince her. And when we settled on dinner in 6 months, I thought, you know, I can't do this again. You know, and what happened is I met my wife, and my wife was an actual person, a real person in my life. And I don't do real people well. You know, like Todd said, he speaks better one-on-one with someone in another state. There or in a group, because basically you're one. And basically you're one that can't approach me. You are just a group, and we are very close to each other, but we are truly worlds apart. And what I've gotten to do is have a real relationship, and it's the hardest and the most remarkable thing I've ever done. And I have screwed it up immensely. I could embarrass you. I could make you uncomfortable if I told you how much I have screwed this relationship up. But what I will tell you, because it's Saturday night and I don't think you want me to make you uncomfortable, is I will tell you that on the flip side of the most uncomfortable I have ever been in relationship with one other human being, it is also the closest I've ever felt in relationship to another human being. And that it has been ultimately well worth it. And it's real, and it's today, and we're doing very well today. And that might sound cynical or distracted or whatever, but it's the truest I can say, is that it's just another day. And it's a friend, and it's a relationship. And I'm really bad and really great at doing this, you know, and I'm glad to be doing it. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else having any other relationship, living any other life, you know. And when I came here 3 years ago, I was still Catholic, vaguely Catholic. But Catholic, vaguely Catholic is Catholic enough. And when I was 18 years old, I had read Exodus by Leon Uris. And I was going to move to Israel. And I pictured it like this. I'd be out in the field, picking something, with my gun on my back. It would be near sunset. I would see her crest the hill in the distance, and she would ride towards me. She would have blonde hair, or brown hair, or red hair. She would ride up, and I would look into her blue eyes, or her brown eyes. And she would say, "There's trouble on the ridge." She would say it like that because I don't speak Hebrew, and so she would have to speak English with an accent. Because if she spoke Hebrew, I wouldn't understand a word she said, and I'd just keep on picking. She'd pull me up on the back of the horse, and we would ride off to the trouble. I went to my sponsor to explain my desire to go to Israel, and he looked at me, and he was about 25 years sober, and he was a wise old man, and he looked at me, and he said, "I wanted to go fishing." I said, "What?" He said, "I wanted to go fishing, but not just fishing, fishing in Nova Scotia." And I thought, here it comes, he's gone. I said, "When did you want to go fishing?" He said, "When I was 2 years sober." I said, "Do you think this is just one of those things?" And he did, and it was. And I never went to Israel. But I had this thing, I just had this fascination with Jews and with Jewish culture. And so 3.5 years ago, I took a course in basic Judaism, because why not? You know? Who am I trying to impress? Who am I afraid of, upsetting? This is my life. It's the only life I'm guaranteed of having, and I like Jews. Hey. So I take this course, and I find out that I like the religion of Judaism. That it makes perfect sense to me. That it makes all the sense that Catholicism never made to me. It fits like a glove. That's, well, maybe not the illusion I'm really looking for, but it worked for me. And so I decided to convert. I could have done without the second circumcision. you know? And I would have, because it was a Reformed conversion of my, I don't know that you really need to know that I'm even circumcised, but what the hell? I always get to that point in telling that story and think, do they really need to know this? And my rabbi said, you're crazy, it's already been done. But the woman at the mikveh, the ritual bath where you immerse yourself, which is one of the other requirements, she was adamant. She said it has to be circumcision with a religious connotation. It has to be done in the spirit of this covenant. And they only draw a drop of blood, so it's not that bad. So I thought, okay, what the hell? So I go to they send you to a doctor because, they're drawing blood from your penis. And the nurse takes me in the room, and she gives me a robe, and she looks me dead in the eye, and she says, wash your penis for 3 minutes. I thought, I don't think I've ever washed my penis for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I'm not washing anymore. Actually, after 3 minutes, I'm done. And on May 14th of 1994, I stood before 50 of my closest friends and family, and I held the Torah in my arms, and I promised to throw my lot in with the Jews come what may, and become an active part of the Jewish community and raise my children, if I ever had any, as Jews, and sever any former religious affiliation. And I came to this decision of free will. Those were the 5 questions that I answered. And I was happy to be there. And I was glad to do it, and I was glad to do it in a public way. My mother said, well, why don't you just do it? But why do you have to actually do it and do it in front of people? And I've learned that here. To stand up and be counted, and to make, what I'm doing is what I'm doing. And if I'm not proud of doing it, then I shouldn't be doing it. And I got to stand in that temple a year later and read from the Torah as a bar mitzvah. And I got to stand in that temple 6 months after that and be married under chuppah. And everyone was freaking out, don't tell your aunt. My aunt's the nun, is in a mental hospital. She's been in a mental hospital for 20 years, and I went to talk to her, and I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want to upset her, but I wanted to, so I said, I'm taking a course in basic Judaism. And she looked at me and she said, Judo? You mean like hitting each other? And I said, no, Judaism, like arguing with each other. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, Jesus was a Jew. It's important to be kind to the Jews. It's the most lucid thing she's ever said to me in like 20 years. I don't know. I think I'm practically out of time. That's one of those things that has absolutely nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous, but if I failed to tell you about it, I wouldn't be telling you my story. That's what it's like now. Trying to find a place for this. So my wife was raised Muslim. Her father's Egyptian. He hates me. No, he doesn't. He doesn't hate me, but he didn't come to the wedding. So I'm a Jew that converted in order to marry out. That's my life, man. Where do you spend Christmas? Where do you spend Ramadan? Who knows? I can't describe it any other way. There's this old Hasidic rabbi. I'm not going to tell the Baal Shem Tov story because it's longer than I have time left. But his great-grandson was the Rabbi Nachman of Wroclaw. I don't even know where that is. Somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains. I don't even know where they are. Somewhere near Transylvania, probably, And I truly don't even know where that is, But I got here, and that's something. No. One day, the Rabbi Nachman was in his window, and his one of his followers running by, and he said, he stopped him. I don't know what he said. Yo! It's like the 1700s. He said, have you looked up at the sky today? He said, no, Rebbe. He said, why not? He said, I'm very busy. He said, son, in 50 years, you and I are both going to be gone. There'll be another market. There'll be different horses. What could possibly be so important that you wouldn't have time to look at the sky? That's the lesson I've learned 10,000 times, and probably will have to learn 10,000 more times. That's the day that I don't pay attention to, you know. The Hindus say namaste. One day I'm going to meet a Hindu and find out if I pronounce that correctly or if I've been making an ass of myself for 15 years. But they say namaste when they greet and when they depart. And what they're saying is that I believe that there's a part of me that is all life, all love, all light, all God. And that I believe there's a part of you that is all light, all love, all life, all God. And when we're in that place together, we are one. And here, in Alcoholics Anonymous, more than anywhere else in the whole world, I feel at one. And I feel at one with you. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.